Release date, November 15th, 2020. Mixed media on canvas. What I did was I buy giant tarps from my local hardware store and I primer them with just Kills primer, just the standard primer that I use that I also get at my local hardware store. I stretch it on this wall with staples to make sure it's smooth. I iron it. Then I primer it. The first phase of this painting, what I did was I took the Crink sprayer that I have laying around my studio and I made some marks on the canvas, and then the next thing that I did was I used some house paint, both interior and exterior, that I had laying around my studio that I had left over from murals, and I added more layers to that. And then I used spray paint and markers and some hot sauce bottles, a ketchup bottle, some scrapers, and various other tools that I have around my studio, including the rollers that I have. Now, in my studio, I have a lot of tools because I paint murals for a living, and I have a lot of excess materials when I'm done with those projects, and I wanted to use them today in a way that was most expressive in getting the point across of this new body of work which I want to create. For the past 4 years, I've been immersed in a prison art program here in Colorado with the federal prison at FCC Florence, where me and my partner and another group of individuals teach inmates self-expression and other art techniques in art history, and we create art within the federal prison system at all levels of security, from a minimum all the way up to the most highly secured prison in the United States. Now, in this program, I've learned a lot about the ways people are innovative in their creative approach to making art, because they don't necessarily have all the access to art supplies that we have, so they oftentimes have to resort to finding materials around the prison and around their cells in which they can create with. Sometimes they hand in projects and they're all like goddamn sticky, and I don't really know why they're so sticky, and I don't really want to know why they're so sticky. I assume maybe it's syrup from this morning's breakfast, but either way, I'll accept it because they come out with some pretty fucking dope work. Through this program, the main thing that I've gotten out of it, besides accepting the resourcefulness that's necessary in order to make works of art, I've really accepted as my life's work, or at least a portion of my life's work, the ways in which we can escape prison systems and get out of prison systems and reduce our own personal prison systems as well as the physical prison systems within this country. As an artist, I'm deeply reflective upon the ways in which I have imprisoned myself, or society has also imprisoned me, because prisons don't necessarily have to be walls. Prisons can be our minds. Oftentimes, they are just our minds. The vast majority of the time, they are just our minds. We find ourselves desiring things that we don't need because some advertiser planted the idea in our head that we needed that thing. And then we compare ourselves to other people, other people's life experiences, other people's possessions. And that's another form of imprisonment for ourselves. For me, I get imprisoned by capitalism and consumerism, because in my work to make a living, I oftentimes have to sacrifice my own vision, my own artistic integrity in order to make money, which I'm deeply grateful that I get to make a living being an artist, because that was always one of my life's dreams, and it's certainly a part of my life's work, was to elevate myself to a very proficient and respected level of being an artist. But that can also be inhibitive, because I have to oftentimes bend to the will of my clients and bend to the desires of my clients in order to fulfill their desires and fulfill their vision and fulfill their needs and what they need to be coming out of my artistic practice. So much of the time, my work relies heavily on illustrative work, where I am expressing their ideas through pictures. And oftentimes, my own work is neglected, and my own self-expression is neglected, because I'm so focused on making a living as an artist and fulfilling the needs and satisfying other people that I neglect my own personal practice. So in this work, while I'm addressing how do I get free from my own prisons, I started to address the idea of getting out of the repetitive nature of creating work for other people, creating work to please other people, and simply creating the work which I'm inspired to create, which for me, my greatest passion has always been graffiti and street art and exploring, and I love the ways in which the narrative of the city, the way that the city speaks is through tons of layers, the acts of creation and then the acts of destruction, one on top of the other, layered upon layered upon layered, creating what we see as our urban landscape. And that is, to me, one of the most beautiful processes, the ways in which graffiti vandals will tag on walls and then the city will come and mark it out. And either way, it tells the same story of destruction, yet it's just layer upon layer of changing what was once a pristine new wall, and now it's just layer upon layer upon layer of various thoughts, ideas, actions, and movements. So in this painting here, I take my inspiration and I do mark making, right? So I started off with the swirls in kind of a homage to the prison system, kind of representing the razor wire, which is the thing that holds us in. And then on top of that, I start destroying the razor wire. I start taking it out with various layers, various ideas, various shapes, various scribbles, various graffitis. Some of them say stuff in a very illegible style. Some of them are just scribbles. Who knows what they are? I don't necessarily know what they are. I'm just letting the concepts flow out of me. And by letting these concepts flow out of me, I'm creating the work which I'm subconsciously desiring to make, which is ultimately satisfying. And I create these works of art, this work of art, release date, releasing a lot of my own inhibitions and creating a non-figurative work of art, a non-descriptive work of art, but something that's rather just expressive completely. As I've evolved as an artist, I used to look down upon abstract art and expressionism, but now I find that work to be really the most important work because it's work that's created from the soul, and it's work that's created to express oneself, and that expression carries over. The frequency of that expression, of that freedom, is carried through and captured in the paint, and then this painting not only visually represents a form of freedom, but it spiritually and energetically is holding that frequency. It's holding those vibrations of being free and nonconformity, which is really what art's all about. It's about breaking those rules. It's about breaking free from those chains. It's about breaking free from the concepts which we hold in our minds, which are inhibiting us. And that's what art's all about. That's why we should all have an art practice. That's the nature of human beings, is to be expressive. And we don't need to be expressive and compare it to if that's going to fall into the banking system and add some extra numbers into our bank account. What we need to do is be expressive for the sake of being expressive, so that we can contemplate these more complex ideas, so that we can grow as individuals and grow as a community and grow as a species. I don't ever know what the future of my work will hold as far as the paintings which I make, but I do know that the path of my life is all about breaking through resistance. It's all about breaking down the barriers which are inhibiting me from being my greatest self. Breaking down the barriers which are inhibiting me from truly fulfilling my life's work and enhancing my community. Release date, November 15th, 2020. Peace and love.